I really thought I'd get to push 2 buttons before I went live, but it's only one. So let's just go for it. Hey, Sean. That light's super hot. Let's change that. The cool thing is, at least I know that if anyone for some reason does watch this, they're pretty forgiving and understanding, because these things don't usually go smoothly, technologically speaking. But I'm holding out for YouTube to begin enabling streaming on their iPad app using external webcams. This doesn't affect anybody. I don't know why I'm talking about this. No one cares. No one's here. But I've been using my iPad. I like using my phone to stream just because it's a simple interface and it's reliable for the most part. However, it's tricky to get microphones reliably connected, and the camera isn't great. The front-facing camera so that I can actually see the chat. But now that the iPad enabled USB webcams to be used, YouTube needs to update their app to include that functionality. But once they do, I'd be able to have my iPad run a cable back to my real camera and not need to buy a laptop or move my desktop down here or do anything big like that. So I dream, hopefully they'll put that functionality out in the world sometime soon. Hopefully it's not that big of a deal. But until then, it's going to look like this again. Hey, Sean. Don't know if we did that or not yet, but I'm out of ideas. And there's like 3 different ways to be out of ideas. And I think in the past month or 2, I've hit all 3 of those ways. And there may be more, but there's 3 that I found. And they are, 1, to be out of ideas to do anything. 2, to be out of ideas that are original ideas to do. And then 3, out of ideas of ways to actually bring those to life. And so for me, I deal a lot with this limitless potential. I'm somebody who owns a ton of video gear. I'm somebody who owns a ton of art stuff. And so often I find myself with nothing to do, no ideas, no projects, or a bunch of ideas, but they're all so vague and they're all for later, that I want to do something. I want to finish a project, and yet, what's up, Simon? I want to finish a project, and yet I don't have anything that's like short term. And if you're a creator, you may find that you're working on a big project, and when a big project takes a long time, you need to do other little projects in there. And I know the idea of like grinding away on a big project is romantic for some people, but for many of us, we can't work on the same project every day for a month, especially a passion project that we're not being paid for. And so if you can do other jobs, if you can do other projects that keep you excited, that keep your creativity honed, that keep you on your toes, it makes your other projects better. And that's what I've been exploring. And I've made my first of 10 or 12 videos of little projects that just keep you on your creative toes. But as I started doing it, I went down this rabbit hole and I stopped making videos about it, and I've just been doing it. And it's been profound. But the first one was I just sketched a face. And this one I uploaded as a video on my channel. But like tried in earnest to sketch a human face. And I'm admittedly very bad at sketching anything that's supposed to look real. I can draw one cartoon face and that's it. And it was a humbling exercise to actually try. And I think so much of what I'm dealing with creatively comes down to that struggle of, are you trying? Because it can be very easy to not really try. And I think the greatest example of this is singing. And it is so easy to not try to sing. And to say like, I'm not a good singer, or even to sing around other people. But when you sing, you kind of do a voice and you're not really singing. That kind of thing I think is an easy one to understand. Where unless you're a professional singer, it takes a lot of guts to be like in the car with your friend and really go for it. And or to be walking through the grocery store and you can sing to yourself like that. Or you could belt it and give yourself some Christmas carols or holiday music or whatever's on your brain, whatever's stuck in your head. But when you translate that to other mediums, it's profound, but it's also subtle if you're not looking for it. And that's what I was realizing with drawing a face. It's like if I were challenged by somebody like, hey, can you draw some? I'm like, yeah, I'll draw some. And I draw it purposefully goofy because that's all I know how to do. And I would think like, well, if I actually try to draw this, it's going to look bad. And people are going to be like, why are you, that looks ridiculous. Everything's out of proportion. There's no good curved lines. It's very unnatural. There's a lot of criticism there. And for good reason. I don't practice. I'm not good at it. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't try. And so as I'm doing these other things, I found myself going down these rabbit holes of I don't have an idea, and so I just straight up copy something that I see, or give it that extra layer of I have the idea, I want to draw, but I don't know what it should look like, and so then I go to this next stage of like I have an idea, but I'm out of ideas on what to do for that idea, and it gets down into this secondary tier, and that's where I've been living for the past few weeks. And so in that time, and I don't have the examples here around me, of course, but I drew that face as the first one. Then I did some spray paint art, and I did I'm going to say cliche space planets, because it's the kind of thing where you would do it. And even if you do it in earnest, you're like, wow, look at this amazing space planet spray painting thing I did. Everyone else has already done these. And like you can search on YouTube and there's 25 people doing it really well and with huge followings. And I think you can talk to yourself and say, well, I'm not trying to do this full time. Like I'm not serious about doing these. So why would I buy the spray paint? Why would I dedicate the time to learning how to do this when anyone's going to look at it and be like, well, you're just copying that. Yeah, you're not as good as they are. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's not even your own spin on it or anything. And that has been fun because as I've done like now 8 of these like space paintings, I don't think I have one down here. Of course not. But as I've been doing the thumbnail of this was a close-up of one of the space paintings. But as I did it, I learned so much about shading and light and these little lessons that are going to apply to my video production. But I wouldn't have gone into it drawing a surreal, non-existent, a fictitious landscape in the sky of planets that don't exist, colors that don't exist. But it made me think differently. And that's the whole point. Doing these little projects, I'm not doing these space paintings to be really good at space paintings. But in doing them and in really trying to do them and to do them well, I'm uncovering things that are applying to different disciplines that I may attempt. And that's been powerful. Then the next thing I wanted to do, I saw this thing on YouTube. I got sucked into the YouTube shorts, which I don't like. But somebody took a wine bottle and they crushed a wine bottle. And on this black sheet, they laid out the pieces of the wine bottle and they poured epoxy over it. And with that, it just looked awesome. It's like this broken wine bottle, but like frozen in space. And so I was like, I want to do that. I've always enjoyed looking at things that are epoxied. I think it's a very neat look, but I've never messed with epoxy. I don't know anything about it. And so I bought some epoxy. I took a bottle of Chambord, which is this blackberry liqueur that I don't drink really anymore. And I wasn't ever going to drink this. So I poured it out. I poured it into a mason jar. It's saved. But took this bottle, smashed it, and I wanted to put it on. So I didn't have something to put it on. And what I saw was like just this black thing. I'm like, is that a tray? How do you keep the epoxy from pouring out over the sides? And so I was like, I think if I put it in a frame already, then the frame will sort of act as walls around it, and that'll be good enough. And so I went to a thrift store, went to St. Vincent de Paul here in St. Louis, went to Goodwill. They didn't have any pictures or paintings at that location. So I went, and there were like 10 things. And the smallest one, the most reasonable size, was this infrared photo of the church at the University of Dayton. And it's one of these things where like, I got it because it was the right size and it was in a frame already. But the imagery of like this church, and not just a photo of a church, but an infrared photo of a church, and that's what I'm putting this broken bottle. And the bottle kind of looks like a chalice. Like, if you know Chambord, it's got like gold leaf around it and stuff. And so it's the kind of thing where people would look at it and be like, wow, Sean, that's a profound statement of like religion adjacent to the vice of alcohol, but the infrared photo, it's not just the way we usually see religion. It's no. This was like the cheapest thing and the smallest thing at the thrift store. And if you'd like to find some meaning in it, you are absolutely welcome and encouraged to do so. I was looking for a cheap frame and I found it. And then I did this thing with epoxy over it. But that was another thing where, like, as I did it, looking at it, and then trying to take photos of it afterwards was where I really found the challenge, because I was like, how do I capture what I did? Because there's so much glare and it's so uneven. It was just an interesting challenge, and it made me rethink, if I do it again, how would I do it a little differently? And again, how does this impact video production? The lessons that I'm learning from the composition, from the framing, from the symbolism of what I'm covering with pieces, what I'm not covering with pieces. Because like many video producers, we show up and we film what we see, and maybe we can move a couple things around or move a plant around. I don't typically deal with a blank slate. I'm not building sets and stuff like that. I'm showing up and doing things on location. And so I don't typically have the luxury of just creating a frame. I'm working with what I have around me. And because of that, I was sort of out of practice. And when given the freedom to do whatever I want, it was an interesting exercise to start at that point instead of starting with something that somebody already did. I got to arrange all the pieces and include what I wanted to and exclude what I wanted to. And I don't typically have that opportunity on set. And I think it will make me more willing to take that time to do it right, to do it a little differently in the future, and when I go back to work, to take this thoughtful composition and go back. And then now the next iteration of this exploration into artwork is these acrylic paint pens, and I grabbed a few of them, but I like the spray paint, but for me it's lacking something. And so what I wanted to do was spray paint, get a cool background going, and instead of stopping there, then go on top of that and try to draw something, meaningful or complicated, something that takes time. And for me, what I've learned from all of these things is that my biggest weakness as an artist is patience. And going back to the beginning of this video, as I find myself running out of ideas, I think a big thing that holds me back with that lack of ideas is so many of the ideas take so long, and I'm learning more and more that I'm impatient creatively. And that's one of the things I like about video is I can shoot it and I can go and I can finish a video in a day. I'm good with my editing software. But when I have to slow down for these things, like with the spray paint, when I have to wait for it to dry, all of the flaws in my paintings are because I didn't wait long enough and I smeared things because they weren't dry yet. And there's a real obvious lesson baked in right there. And then the same with drawing on it, the same with letting the epoxy cure before I could do anything with it. Forcing myself to slow down has been a difficult thing to do, but an important thing to do. And meanwhile, I started this video by saying working on a big project is hard for me unless I break it up with these little projects, and being able to complete a project, that little bit of momentum goes so far to helping me get back to work on the big project. And my big project right now is the kids show. And we filmed our episode in the beginning of August, and it is still not done. There's 4 segments. None of them are done, not even close. And I've opened it up and I've been looking at it this week. And that idea of patience is not usually a part of my video editing process because I've had such a vision, but this is so different and it's so meaningful to me that I want to get it right. And that is slowing me down. And I've been annoyed by that. I've been annoyed by having to be so thoughtful about it, and it's kept me from finishing it. And so doing these other projects, as I've run out of ideas on what to do, and it's put me down this tangent of like, oh, I saw something neat on YouTube and I want to try that, or I saw something on Instagram and I want to try that. Wherever you find your ideas, or people send them to you or whatever, to say, I do want to try that, doing the project, finishing it, taking a lesson from it, and then taking that lesson and the momentum from having finished it back into your main passion projects or your main work is a huge thing for me, and it's changing the way that I look at my work. And so as I think, am I out of ideas? In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. But for me to take any idea, almost at random, pick it, execute it, see it through, finish it, learn the lesson, take the momentum, and keep going, that is the powerful thing here. And instead of feeling the dread of, man, I just don't have any ideas, going after something, knowing that I want to try this idea, and it's not going to be my discipline. It's not going to be my main thing. I'm not getting into this type of stuff. I want to do one project like that just to see if I can do it. The lessons I learned from that have been paramount to focusing me to finish these bigger projects that are within my discipline and that I am excited about. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Again, these live streams are so poorly attended that it's easy to sit here and think I shouldn't do these. And I don't know why I do, but it is fun and it is a good exercise. And another example of, look, the idea is to do a live stream. Then I got to find the idea of what the live stream's about underneath it. But by doing it, by getting up and setting things up, I learn things about the technology, the setup, things that will apply to my bigger jobs with video. But then also the lessons in writing and composing and public speaking and organizing my thoughts in a way that I can share them and thinking about it ahead of time and then just being in the mindset of farming ideas. That's all very useful stuff creatively to me that make it worth it for all of this. And I'll leave you with this, and I'm going to make a whole video about what I'm about to say, but this is what I'm stewing on lately. I've just finished reading Ryan Holiday's Courage is Calling book, which I loved, and it talked about how courage is contagious. And if there's a bunch of neutral people, one person in a panic can ruin everything. In the same way, one person who is composed can save everybody. And the good question is, what kind of person are you? Are you somebody who they call to solve the problem, or are you somebody that needs to be calmed down? But as I thought about that more and more, there was another segment that went into that a little bit deeper, saying we need to be courageous in these little things. We need to try things. We need to do things because it shows other people that they can. And the more of us that do these things, the more of us that do these things, which encourages us. And it's this constantly self-fulfilling prophecy. And so it's easy to roll your eyes and say, why is Sean live streaming? It's easy for me to roll my eyes and say, why is Sean live streaming? Why is he talking? Why is he sharing these ideas about other books that other people wrote and all this derivative nonsense? But if I stream, maybe you'll stream. Maybe someone will stream. Maybe they'll see it and say, hey, if that dude can do it, then I can do it. And if they do it, who knows who might see them? And if you try art, if you try a thing, if you try something you haven't tried before and put it out there and say, hey, this wasn't my best work, but I'm trying it, I'm learning from it. That's, again, you get that momentum for yourself. But if other people see it and it encourages them to try something, and then it encourages our kids to try something and to not be afraid of putting themselves out there and having their spray paint space paintings being criticized by people who haven't tried it or who haven't tried much of anything. It's a dangerous place to imagine where we don't have people being bold enough to create and to create things that they haven't created before. And so that's why I'm doing this. And I think if I can put myself out there and be vulnerable and create things that I haven't created before and stare down the YouTube commenters and continue to create, then maybe someone else will. And if that person does, I don't know who they'll inspire, but it's going to be somebody. And to be a part of that is, I think, the greatest thing that any of us could do as creators. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. I sincerely appreciate it. Have a great day or night or whatever, wherever. See you later. Bye. I need to create consistency in my hand motions for that, but not this time.